What's up, guys? Andrew Cooper here. Coop's Fantasy Football Fiasco, the last one before the NFL playoffs. And I'll tell you what, all year long, we've been doing the FFPC contest. We've been sponsored by FFPC. So why not bring in FFPC's very own Eric Balkman, my boy here. Eric, how you doing, brother?
I'm excited to chop it up with you here, talking about the NFL playoffs. It's going to be, we got 2 home dogs this weekend, which is always a fun way to kick off Super Wildcard weekend. And we have 2 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, and 1 on Monday. There's people who don't like that format. I kind of enjoy it. The fact that we get NFL football, playoff football, on 3 consecutive days.
Yeah, you know who the people that don't like it? It's the DFS guys.
Right.
The DFS guys, they don't like it because they don't like playing. I've noticed the DFS guys hate playing the elongated slates. Like they hate the Thursday to Monday slate. They want like one main slate, one and done. So they don't like this whole 2 games one day, another day. Us though, we don't care because the FFPC, the weekly and of course the big one, the playoff challenge. You use all the teams, you use all the games. And today, for those that don't know, we are giving away a $200 FFPC entry to the playoff challenge. It's exclusive to Fantasy Alarm members. So if you're a Fantasy Alarm member, like I know Jack Sensen is, like I know Angelo is hanging out in the chat, like I definitely know Ann Dunn is and has been for a long time, go to fantasyalarm.com/FFPC, and literally all you do is put in your username. And sorry, not even username. You put in your name and the email address that you sign up for Fantasy Alarm with, and you're in. And by the end of the show, we're going to randomize that, pull a name, give you an entry. That particular contest, the top prize, $500,000 big ones, Eric, right?
It's gotten bigger every single year. I said last week, I was talking to Howard Bender actually, and I said, we still haven't had week 18 yet, and we have more than 10% of each of these contests filled, which is not normal. I just checked it today. Just now actually, we're at like 2/3 full for the $200 playoff challenge. You can win $500,000, and then the $35 one is almost 80% full, I think. And remember, like, this is like when everybody signs up. This is when everybody is getting their lineup set. And I think a lot of people too, and Coop, you probably know this from the weekly challenge stuff. People will submit a lineup. Players will submit lineups and they'll be like, yeah, I can see this one winning. But just in case it doesn't, I'm going to do another one or another, and then it's like it kind of snowballs a little bit. And then I was talking to the guys who won last year, Judd Rosengart and Phil Orban, who won the $500,000 last year. And they there's a consortium that they have together. They're all college roommates from the University of Maryland. Well, not anymore, but they were back in the day. There's 4 of them. And they get together, they buy multiple lineups, and then they have like a 3-hour Zoom call Thursday night, which happened last night. And they get together, they try to explore every single angle to figure out where the edge is. And hopefully in the next, whatever it is, 55 minutes, we'll explore some angles and edges that people can get to as well.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun, man. I got to do something like that. I mean, I do my own, but it would be fun to have I've already drafted a couple. I did one with Howard and the Fantasy Alarm guys. I did one with the player profiler guys, Theo, and we're going to do one today, but it'd be cool to do something like that. So maybe I'll do that moving forward. For those that don't know, the FFPC Playoff Challenge works like this. You have kind of carte blanche to some degree, unlike the other platforms where you're constricted by salaries, you have a draft. In this one, you can use virtually any player you want with one caveat. You can only pick one player from each team. So no stacking here. If you use Patrick Mahomes, you cannot use Travis Kelce, which I like. You know what I mean? Because sometimes with the stacking stuff, you get blown out too early, or if you don't have the exact right chalk, you get smoked. I don't like that. So I love this. The way it works is this. Here's a quick description for everybody. And then what we're going to do, I'll give you guys a description. Eric will give you some tips because he's on the inside. And then we'll look at all the matchups, right? We'll pull all the players we think are viable. We'll make a lineup. And then we'll give away a $200 lineup, a $200 entry. So here's a quick rundown of how it works. For anything else, you can just assume it goes the way your normal league does. 10 yards a point, 25-yard passing is a point. The differences are this. You start a quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 4 flexes. So big lineup time. Kicker and defense on top of that. It's 4-point passing, for passing touchdowns, 6 point for rushing. So that's a little different than some leagues. It's full PPR and tight end premium. So full PPR for running backs, wide receivers. If a quarterback catches a pass, that's one catch. For tight ends, it's 1.5, right? And then the other caveat that I find matters, obviously you got to check out the defense and whatever, but turnovers are only -1. So your boy Josh Allen, if he's hurdling and fumbling and he's doing those arm punts he likes to do, that's only -1 point. So Eric, did I get everything on that? Did I miss anything as format?
No, you hit all the major stuff. I think like anybody who's played in the FFPC is used to the scoring, they're used to the lineup. The biggest thing is instead of 2 flexes, which is normally what you get 4 flexes, which is like, think about how crazy that could be. 6 wide receivers, 5 tight ends, 6 running backs. If you really wanted to get nasty, so I think that's the biggest thing is and you hit on this as well, and I think this is what makes it so compelling and it's easy to fill out multiple lineups is you don't have to mess around with it once the playoffs start. Like once the playoffs start, you just kick up your feet and you watch the games and you watch the points pile up on your teams.
I'll tell you what, those one and done leagues, man, you got to be on top of it because, you set your lineup week 1. So many of these, and honestly, so many of the one and dones, people will just stop doing it after 1 week, right? Which I think is a mistake. And I'll tell you what, last year, going through the data, there are people that reserve spots, believe it or not, people that reserve spots in this $300 or $200, and they don't even set a lineup. I noticed a bunch of those at the bottom of the scoring.
We always like that, and we'll do that too. Like when it gets close to kickoff for that Saturday game, we'll run a report to see who hasn't filled out a lineup, and we'll do our best to email as many of those people as possible. Like, hey, you bought the team, put the lineup in, and it happens,
Yeah. So that's our first tip, our first insider tip. Fill out your lineup. If you have bought a team, fill out your lineup. You already kind of alluded to one tip earlier, which is that these do fill up. They will fill up, and they fill up today and tomorrow. Is you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, I'll get in at some point. No. Because the people that come in, like me today, I bought 10 teams today, right? So there's going to be people coming in and saying, you know what, I'm getting in and I'm locking it down, and those spots go real quick. So be very careful with that. Other tips that we have, as far as positions go, quarterback's really important, right, Eric?
Well, and forgive me if you didn't mention this or if you already mentioned this. Super Bowl, you get double points.
I didn't mention that. That's okay. A huge caveat.
So here's the thing. Like, and this will be tip number 1, and maybe this is obvious, maybe it's not. When you are submitting a lineup for this FFPC Playoff Challenge, the best thing you can do for yourself is to fill out your playoff bracket. Fill out the bracket of how you think the games are going to go, or at least how the games are going to go for this specific lineup, and then build your lineup after that, because it is so crucial to have 2 players left for that final game of the season. It can be done with only 1 player in the Super Bowl. I don't know if it's ever been done, but so maybe it can't be done. I don't know.
I was looking at it last year, Eric, and not only is it very difficult to do it, but if you go and look at last year, the top, I was scrolling through, and I think I got through in the $200 contest, which is even, the $300 one is even bigger. I got through about 200 teams that had both Kelsey and Jalen Hurts, and no one that had any, even just different players on those teams finished in the top 200. Like if you had Mahomes and AJ Brown, then nobody finished inside the top 1,000. So it's not only that you need the Super Bowl teams, but you probably need the right ones. Again, that was last year. Last year it was a little different than past years because Jalen Hurts did so well in the Super Bowl that it really skewed it in favor of that. Whereas, a couple of years ago, Josh Allen, for instance, was the number 1 quarterback. He not only didn't even make it to the Super Bowl, he didn't even make it to the AFC Championship, right? He scored 9 touchdowns first 2 weeks. So it's not the end of the world, but having superstars in the Super Bowl is going to be humongous for you.
I remember back in the Seahawks Broncos Super Bowl, and there was a gentleman, the guy who ended up winning it. He was I think he kind of came out of nowhere. I think he was in like the top 30 or something, or maybe top 40, but he was the only guy that had the Seahawks defense. And that was the year that Peyton Manning just absolutely got destroyed by that Seahawks defense, and he vaulted all the way up to winning the whole thing. Now, back then, it was only a $200,000 grand prize. Now it's $500,000. So it's even more important to get these players right in the Super Bowl. So I think that's where you start, right? I mean, you fill out your bracket and you pick what you think is going to be the right players for the Super Bowl competitors. For Baltimore, is it Lamar Jackson? Is it somebody else? Does somebody else have a big game in the Super Bowl? If Baltimore even gets there, you can make the same case with San Francisco or Dallas or Buffalo or anything like that. But that's probably the, I don't know if it's the biggest piece of the puzzle, but it's certainly one of the first pieces of the puzzle you want to put down.
Exactly. And you don't have to pick it exactly right as long as you have mega stars on the teams you think go deep. That's the way I'm playing it this year. Is I'm going pretty chalky with the teams that I think could go, right? So I mean, you look at the odds and there's 4 teams that are under 1,000 odds with Vegas. There's, the Ravens, there's the 49ers, there's the Cowboys, and then there's the Bills, right? So it's like you can, for instance, 2 years ago, the Josh Allen team that won, Cooper Kupp went crazy in the Super Bowl. You didn't have to have Matthew Stafford. You didn't have to have Joe Burrow in the Super Bowl if you had guys like Chase and Kupp. So that's the way I'm playing it. Now, the other caveat to that I want to mention before we start getting into these games is, let's say you're going to make one lineup and your quarterback is going to be Josh Allen. Well, you need Josh Allen to go deep. At other positions, you can have singular great games from your flexes and they can lose. So if you have an RB that goes off, or if you have a guy like TJ Hawkinson last year that had 10 catches for 129, which in tight end premium is 15 catches for 129, that's fine. But if you have Josh Allen, you need him to win at least one game. So if so facto, you don't want to load up on Steelers. You don't want to have a important Steeler. You might not want to have Steelers at all, or you want to go with Steelers kickers or defense, because those players are going to get eliminated. Or because if Josh Allen loses, then you lose, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing you have to understand is if you go out on a limb with a certain player, you want to make sure that the rest of your bracket of players is matching up. So if you think the Bills are going far, and maybe you think the Ravens get upset, and I'll bring this up again, the guys who won it last year, we talked about potentially what do you do with the Ravens, and they said like, look, if the Ravens end up bowing out in the first round, Justin Tucker is actually a really good play, because that probably means the Ravens are losing. Lamar Jackson probably had a bad game. Zay Flowers probably had a bad game. And Tucker might be the guy there. So I think, like, as crazy as that sounds, to take the kicker from the number 1 seed or the team that has the best shot of getting to the Super Bowl, that sounds nuts, but we're living in a new world right now, and a new NFL, and certainly, and this guy is one of the best kickers of all time. He's not some schlub, so I think that there's something to be said for that. But
not to mention if the games go, if the favorites win this week, if all the favorites win this weekend, the Ravens are playing a divisional matchup against the Browns. Like that's not a cakewalk. So something to keep in mind for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right, let's start getting into these. What we're going to do here is we're going to go through each matchup, talk about it a little bit. Again, we already got people mentioned in the chat, Bills, Steelers, snow. It's going to be cold for the, very cold. In fact, historically cold, they're saying, for the Chiefs and Dolphins game. So we'll talk about all that. What we're going to do is Eric's going to go through and mention some players he likes. I'm going to make a list, and then we'll pull up an actual FFPC lineup, and I'll say, hey, you know what? Now it's time to decide. You mentioned this guy and this guy from the Browns. Who do we like? This guy and this guy. So, hey, let's get in the first one. First game on the slate, 4:30 p.m. Saturday. So tomorrow, baby. Browns at Texans, 2.5-point spread, 44.5 over under. On the Browns side, if we're making just one lineup, we're not going Flacco, right?
No. If you're going one lineup, I think you are better off picking one of the top 4 teams and choosing their quarterback. So if you're doing multiple lineups, yeah, Flacco would make some sense, but not with one lineup. I'm not that strong, Coop. I am a weak man.
No, not doing it. Not with one. We're going to pretend like you and I don't have a bunch of lineups, which we do, and we're going to do it. We're going to play it straight here. But guys that we do potentially like, we're looking for, in this case, right? Let's assume that we think the team that wins plays the Ravens. We want guys that can not only have 1 or 2 great games, but have massive individual game upside. So we probably don't want to start like a Kareem Hunt. A guy like David Njoku in this format right? Tight end premium, or a guy like Amari Cooper. Is there anybody else out of those guys from the Browns that piques your interest? You want to be unique to some degree. Number one,
Right.
because unique lineups have won in the past, because it's very difficult to predict the exact right lineup because football is so strange. The other thing is that if Eric and I have two different lineups, two different entries that are the same, and we win, we both have the number one lineup. That's $250,000 a piece in the $200 contest. If we have our own lineup.
For what it's worth, Coop, I'll just put this out there right now. Because I'm an employee of the FFPC, I am not playing in this competition, but I'm more than happy to discuss and put together a lineup that one of the viewers could enter in, but I will have no part of.
This is my lineup.
Absolutely clear.
Exactly. This is my lineup. Exactly. Yes. You're just consulting on players that you like.
Yes.
Which,
exactly.
Of course. Yeah. So, So, is there anybody? I think to me, it's just Amari Cooper and David Njoku for this particular contest.
The only way I think you would involve anybody else is if you think the Texans move on. And if you think the Texans move on, you could make a case for Riley Patterson or that Browns defense, which has been really, really good all season. But I think if we're looking for explosive upside here, it comes down to Cooper and Njoku. And I think this is an interesting comparison because Njoku's really been coming on. You have the tight end premium scoring, but then at the same time, look what Amari Cooper did to this Texans secondary a few weeks ago. Like just absolutely destroyed it, right? So I don't know if all of a sudden that gets fixed. I also don't know if Amari Cooper's heel all of a sudden gets fixed, which he's dealing with right now. I'll put it this way, and I'll leave this up to you. I have always been leaning towards Njoku for my Cleveland Browns representative. People smarter than me, people who have done very, very well in this competition before, have been saying Amari Cooper. I think it comes down to one of those two players for Cleveland. My gut says Njoku, but my brain would tell you Amari Cooper.
This is one of the toughest years for this contest. I've been doing it for years, and to be honest, because the problem is the way some of these teams operate is different than years past. Where like you look at the 49ers and Dolphins, they are consolidated because they have a fullback, right? But that means there are multiple stars. Like in some years, each team has one star and it was easy. Like last year, for instance, I went through my lineups and I just plugged in Jamar Chase and then I plugged in Justin Jefferson, right? It felt easy in that sense, but this year, not so much. On the Texans side, who you feeling if you're going to pull a Texan here? No. So the Texans would have been a tougher team had Tank Dell still been hanging around. No Tank Dell probably makes it a little easier. What are you thinking as viable options? So for the Browns, I pulled out Cooper and Njoku, Browns D, Browns kicker.
Yes. Okay. So I think you could make a case if you wanted to go super contrarian, like let's say you're filling out double digits or something like that, and you wanted to get crazy. I think you could throw Noah Brown into this mix. I probably won't do that. And isn't he banged up right now? I feel like he's dealing with something. Okay.
He is a little bit, but he has had multiple blow up games. He had back-to-back 2 games back-to-back where he totaled over 300 yards. So this guy obviously capable of blow up games in the right conditions. But yeah, if you're doing one lineup, I don't know if you go there.
I like Fairbairn here. I think that he would make some sense. I could see a lot of Texans drives getting stonewalled when you get closer to the 20, and Fairbairn could have a big game. When we apply the same logic that we were talking with Cleveland, explosive players having big games, I mean, who does that sound like to you? Does that sound like Nico Collins, or does that sound like Devin Singletary? Right, to me, so I know Singletary he's taken over the backfield and he's catching passes, which is great, which is what we love. But I mean, like, let's just say we think the Browns win this game. If they win this game, it could be a case where Nico Collins is trying to, and Stroud are hooking up in the second half, trying to make some plays and come back at the end. And Nico Collins, I mean, even in the victories this season, 8 for 120 and 2 touchdowns. You know, like he has been such a find for fantasy players this year. If we apply the logic of explosive players here, that's what we want in our lineup. To me, Nico Collins is a lot more exciting with a much higher ceiling than Devin Singletary.
Bingo. And honestly,
and just real quick, if the Texans are one and done, like then that's all that matters, right? That you pick the right Texan. And Collins, to me, would for sure it wouldn't be Stroud, would not be the right player here if they're one and done. Right. Collins could be that guy.
That's a great feeling too. When you do pick that guy, he goes off and then off in the distance, you know, you did the right thing. And the
Yep.
other thing is that even if they're not one and done, it's just picking the right guy over Singletary or whoever else is what matters. Last year, the perfect lineup did not have Stephon Diggs in it or Josh Allen or the running back. It was actually Gabe Davis, because in week 1 of the playoffs, he came out and had 100 plus yards and a touchdown. And then week 2, nobody did anything. So technically he scored more points than anybody else and was a slight edge. So, you know, I don't mind Nico Collins there. Dalton Schultz, I know I'm a big tight end guy, but it's just the Browns are one of the toughest matchups for tight ends. I'm not going to go Schultz with a single lineup, but I did mix him into one lineup out of 10. So he's a 10%er for me. All right, there's 2 games on Saturday. Next one, 8:10 p.m. Dolphins Chiefs. Supposed to be insanely cold, but still 43.5 point over under, 4.5 point spread in favor of the Chiefs. So they're not turning around and saying, okay, this game is going to be. I mean, the Patriots Jets game had a 30 point over under last week. This one's 43.5. So they're still saying it's going to be a football game, just maybe not the explosive game you might see if it were in Miami. So on the Miami side, in the cold, are we letting that phase us, or are we just going with the chalky megastar and Tyreek Hill?
Well, okay. So to me, Miami is a team built on speed. I don't know if there's any correlation between speed and cold. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. They've just never mixed well with me before. Like I don't trust speed with the cold weather. So what we need to do here, I think there's a big 4. Can we eliminate Tunga Vailoa? Are you comfortable eliminating him? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now you have Hill and Achane as possibilities here. Are we saying no to Mostert because we simply just don't know how healthy he is?
Yeah, that's the problem, is the knee. And honestly, in like a one and done format, I really like using Achane this week because, you know, if the Dolphins lose and use Achane, then good, whatever. If the Dolphins win and use Achane, you still have most of your back pocket. In this, we need to pick one guy all the way through, and just the possibility that, you know, this is an Achane week. And then, I mean, I do have some Achane lineups. I just worry that, like, what happens if Mostert is fine? And now all of a sudden we just pick the wrong running back. I personally think it's Achane or Tyreek Hill because we want explosive upside. I'm down to go either way with this lineup.
Well, okay. So this is the Saturday night game. We will not have inactives by the time lineups lock on this, which is okay. Like everybody's dealing with the same thing here. To me, there's only one guy that's not beat up on this team. Like Hill's dealing with stuff. Mostert has been dealing with stuff. Waddle's been, but he's been hurt. He's
got
missed
10 injuries. Waddle has like 15 different injuries. Yeah,
it's insane. The only healthy guy, and the guy that I think that if you were to say, well, who's for sure going to have a significant role in this game, it's going to be Devon Achane.
Yeah.
And it, you know, any of those other 3 guys could go off, but we're dealing with limited information here. I want to get, this is twofold here. Number one, I want to get somebody who I know will be involved in trying to not only move the ball down the field, but score the ball when you get closer to the goal line. And 2, I always think running back is kind of a tricky position to fill in any time in this contest. So anytime you can fulfill it with a good candidate, you take advantage of that. And I think Achane would probably be my pick here for the Dolphins.
I love it. All right. So on the KC side, Justin in the chat saying go Pacheco and Achane. So we're in on Achane. The options to me, there's essentially 4, obviously. If we're going to make just one lineup, it's Mahomes, it's Kelsey, it's Rashee Rice, or it's Pacheco. So those are the guys that are on the table. Is there anybody that you lean towards right off the rip?
Well, Kelsey and Mahomes have been – it always used to be Kelsey or Mahomes, right, in this contest every single year. Who's your chief going to be? Is it going to be Mahomes or is it going to be Kelsey? And now entering the fray is a guy that Mahomes has been much more successful throwing the ball to over the last month of the season plus in Rashee Rice, more so than Travis Kelsey. So I think Rice is very interesting to me here. Pacheco I like because of the weather, because of how the Chiefs have been winning this year. It's not been with Mahomes' arm. It's been running the ball and it's been defense. And I think Pacheco is interesting. And now the other thing that Justin points out here, as far as running backs go, Pacheco and Achane, and a lot of people would say, well, you can't do that. They're playing each other in the first round. You don't want to have 2 running. Well, 4 flexes, I think you can afford to get away with
Right.
having 2 running backs playing each other in the first round. The other thing, too, that's so important with this Chiefs-Dolphins game, would not surprise me at all if the winner of this game ends up playing in the AFC Championship game or potentially the Super Bowl, too. So that's
Right.
not the worst idea in the world to have a guy like Pacheco or a guy like HM. Now, getting back to this, I don't know if I want to do Mahomes just because it's not Patrick Mahomes, capital letters.
It's not the format for him either,
Right.
right? Like this format skews away from guy that, doesn't get a bunch of rushing touchdowns, is conservative enough with the football. Like for him to win, he would need to do what Tom Brady did, which is play all 4 games, including the Super Bowl, throw 2 or more touchdowns in every game. And he also mixed in a rushing touchdown with a QB sneak. So like Brady had to come out and score 11 touchdowns as a non-mobile quarterback in this format. And it's just, you to pick Mahomes, you have to say that I think the Chiefs go to the Super Bowl. You have to, you know what I mean? He has to go, and they probably have to win because, last year Mahomes threw 3 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. But because Jalen Hurts had 3 rushing touchdowns in the Super Bowl, the top Mahomes team finished outside the top 1,000. They finished outside the money. So, Mahomes did go to the Super Bowl last year, and he threw 3 touchdowns in the Super Bowl, and you didn't win any money if you had him. So it is, again, I put him in. I know it sounds crazy, right? It is a crazy contest. So I say that he's a 10%er. If you're going to make 10 teams, I have 10 teams. I'll give you the breakdown right now of my quarterbacks. I have 10 teams. I have 5 Josh Allens, 3 Lamar Jacksons, a Mahomes, and a Jalen Hurts. Those are my 10 for that group. And then I have a couple. Those are my $200 teams. So I take this pretty seriously. And I know there's people out there that do 25 $200 teams. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's people that go crazy. So, but we're getting in on it. We've been doing FFPC all year, so that's where we're at. But yeah, I'm with you. So we'll cross Mahomes out and we'll leave it at Kelsey, Rice, Pacheco. Again, we want to leave our options open until we get to the build.
Well, hold on, just real quick. How does the Dolphins, in your opinion, how does the battered Dolphins defense factor into picking a Chief here? If we're gonna let's just look at it from a 1-game scenario, how much does that play into this? Is that better for Pacheco? Is it better for Kelsey over the middle, or is it better for Rice on the perimeter? Like I think you could. Well, I'll let you answer.
Well,
this.
I'll tell you what. The thing is, typically the Dolphins have not been good against the tight end. But earlier this year, even while Kelsey was playing well, in the middle of all that, like very, very, so Kelsey against the Chargers earlier this year in October 22nd, I believe it was, 12 catches for 179 and a touchdown. And within a week or 2 of that, he went up against this Dolphins team and had 3 catches for 14 yards. In fact, Noah Gray scored more fantasy points in that matchup than Kelsey did, oddly enough. Yeah, 3 catches for 34. So, you know what? Like I have a lot of Kelsey lineups. I believe in Kelsey, but if we're making one lineup here, there's other options, man. There's other options at tight end. And to your point with the running backs against each other, you're talking about, we might not want to do that. You got to keep in mind, folks, you're picking 12 players. There's 14 teams. 6 teams are going to get eliminated this weekend, right? So 2 of those teams, you're not going to have any players on. You're hoping those teams lose. But 4 of your players are going to get eliminated. So we're hoping that's our kicker and defense, but we're going to lose 2 flexes no matter what. So if we start 2 running backs in this game and both running backs go off, one of those running backs gets hurt, goes off in the sunset, that's great for us, especially if it's Pacheco that we play and all the Mahomes teams are out. All the Kelsey teams are probably in trouble, right? If Pacheco has a big game, that's it. So, but anyway, we got to get through these so that we can put together a team and also give away a $200 entry. Reminder, Fantasy Alarm members, go to FFPC and put in your name and the email address you use for your Fantasy Alarm membership, and you get a free entry to get a $200 buy-in. We're going to give it away at the end of the show. And I mean, that's the easiest sign up possible. And it's something that we're just giving back to Fantasy Alarm members. You're already a member. All you do is put in your name and email address. We're giving one away. So stay tuned. That's going to be at the end here. Next matchup here on the list, we have the Steelers and Bills. This one has the lowest over-under of the week, 34.5, and the Bills are favored by 9.5 or 10, depending where you look. I know it says 4.5 on the screen there. That's not what I'm saying, but
that's if you tease it down.
yeah, Sean, let me know though if Sean, maybe our producer Sean, the Prince, Prince Angle has updated information compared to what I have. Let me know if you're seeing that as the new line here, but I'm seeing 34.5, 9.5 or 10-point favorites for the Bills. On the Steelers side, this is one where we're basically deciding, do we start no Steelers at all, or do we sneak somebody in there? What's your gut say on that one, Eric?
I mean, I've heard the you always say you want to tell a story to yourself about how you can justify having a certain player from a certain team, and I have not heard the story yet that entices me about putting a significant Steeler in here. You're talking about bad weather. Wind too, right? It's not just accumulation of snow.
They're saying snow. Yeah, they're saying snow and crazy wind. They're saying
Yeah.
gusts upwards of 60 miles an hour, which is just insanity.
So to me, that eliminates Johnson and Pickens at that point. Freiermuth is like dead to me at this point. So
he was, yeah, he doesn't like him, dude. The yards per attempt for Mason Rudolph is much higher than it was for Kenny Pickett. He pushes the ball down the field, which has been working for them, but just bad news for the move,
I think the only two skill guys you can make a case for are Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. And because these guys have gone back and forth on they've cannibalized each other pretty much all season. First, Harris was the lead, then Warren, then Harris, so to me, like, I don't have a good feel of what they're going to be doing on the field against the Bills defense that, quite frankly, has not been quite the same since Matt Milano went down with that injury. So I think there's a possibility that one of those guys could have a big game. I don't know who it's going to be. I can't in good conscience say, hey, Chris Boswell, 60-mile-an-hour winds, let's play him this week. I can't do that. The only one that seems somewhat compelling, and I know they're missing TJ Watt, is the Steelers defense, not so much because of what Highsmith and those guys can do, but because of the elements and because of the situation. This could be a low-scoring game, and the Steelers might end up putting up a decent fantasy score here. So we can either fade them or we could play the defense. I can't really own anything else.
Not to mention, Josh Allen is good for a big mistake every week. Josh Allen plays football like there's nothing going on inside of his head, and it's the most dangerous thing for both teams, right? Because he's willing to do the craziest stuff that works out. He's also willing to throw bad interceptions, hurdle guys, put himself in danger of fumbling. And again, that's fine for picking Josh Allen because it's it's only 1 point. It's only negative 1 point for turnovers in this format, but on the other side, I don't mind the Steelers D. So we'll keep it that way. I'm gonna go ahead and mark this down. Either the hard fade Steelers, as Anthony says, or we'll use the DST. I don't think we need to go elsewhere on this, especially because it's such a low over under. We only expect them to play this one game and be toast. We don't need to get that. We don't need to go that far against the grain. Yeah, Jackson in the chat saying fade the Steelers as well. So, we might go DST. We'll see. On the Bills side, though, there's a decision to be made here. Again, another team where there's 4 viable options in a format like this. Obviously, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs is a guy that, in the past, as of late, he hasn't been used the way we would like, but in the past, he's been good. James Cook is on the table, and because it's tight end premium, all of a sudden Dalton Kincaid's on the table. So what are you thinking here? I mean, again, to me, I'll give you my thoughts right away. Kincaid is if I'm making 10 lineups, I'm definitely having Kincaid, and he's not a 10%er to me. He's a guy that if we're going to have mostly chalk in our lineup here and 1 or 2 kind of, what if we did this? He's kind of in that what if we did this territory for me.
All right. So I totally agree with you on Kincaid. In fact, I might actually even like him a little bit more than you. Maybe
I don't know if that's possible.
Maybe not a ton. Yeah,
I've been driving the Kincaid wagon all season, but I'll tell you, I do like Kincaid. I do have multiple lineups with Kincaid.
Okay, all right. So maybe I like him. We're in the same ballpark.
Equally, yeah. I think we're there.
Cook is interesting because I've never really trusted the Bills' ground game in the playoffs before until this year, and now I actually think that they would utilize it a little bit more than they had. It's weird because if you asked me at the start of the season, who do you like better in the playoff challenge on the Bills, Stephon Diggs or James Cook, I would have said Diggs, no question. And it's a 180 right now. I trust James Cook a lot more than I trust Stephon Diggs. Diggs is a fade for me in this competition. He's a guy that I think, and I know Gabe Davis is out, which this, at least for round one, maybe the second round too. I think what's interesting here is Josh Allen could be a successful player in a choice in this format, in this competition, and Diggs could just be a guy. Like it could be a Cook, it could be Kincaid, it could be Khalil Shakir. Like I cannot trust Diggs at this point. To me, he's a fade for the Bills. I could see Josh Allen. I know a lot of smart people have been saying Josh Allen is going to be their quarterback. I like Cook. I mean, we obviously like Kincaid here as well. I think that what this comes down to is who do you think gets to the AFC champ, or beg pardon, who ends up getting to the Super Bowl from the AFC? If you believe in the Bills, who will get a home game against Patrick Mahomes if it plays out that way, but they still will have to go to Baltimore and beat the Ravens if the Ravens are lucky enough or fortunate enough to get there. So if you believe the Bills, like this is the year, then I think you have to go Josh Allen. If you don't think the Bills are going to get it done, then I think this comes down to Cook or Kincaid.
Yeah. So Josh Allen, the reason I have 5 Josh Allen lineups, is between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson as my top play. The reason that I have a lot of Josh Allen lineups is that he has the highest ceiling of any player in the tournament, right? Mm-hmm. Because he plays an extra game. He hypothetically has the opportunity to play an extra game than Lamar Jackson, right? Like it favors quarterbacks. He could, and because the Super Bowl counts as 2, he could hypothetically have 5 games worth of points as a mobile quarterback in a format that's custom built for him, where turnovers don't matter, right? -1 doesn't. I don't care about -1, not one bit. So Josh Allen's on the table, but again, let's go through and hit some of these other games, and we'll decide which way to go at quarterback. Because the other thing is when you go through and look at some teams, I say to myself, okay, and again, let's go to what's next here. When we get to the Ravens game, I want to talk about the Ravens game. Oh, so the Ravens are in bye. So the thing with the Ravens is when I don't use Lamar Jackson, I have a difficult time deciding who I want to use. So we'll get to the 49ers. And actually, why don't we talk about the Ravens and 49ers right now? The team's on bye week. Mm-hmm. So when I look at the Ravens, if I don't use Lamar Jackson, I'm like, okay, Isaiah Likely, a player I love. But now there's this talk about maybe Mark Andrews plays. And then now all of a sudden, if Mark Andrews doesn't play the first week after the bye, and then he does play, it ruins both players for me, right? So like, it almost becomes like if we don't use Lamar Jackson, now we're using Zay Flowers.
Right? Well, that's the thing. It's like, to me, the Mark Andrews thing, people look at it as clouding what you do with Likely now. To me, it clears it up. You just stay away.
Yeah. Which is nice. There's so many good players. It's kind of nice to just be like, okay, not good.
And I think the thing too is that we have to understand. The Ravens don't play this week. This is an extra week for Andrews to get healthy too. Like the reports that we could get on Mark Andrews and how close he is could be glowing at this point next week. And at this point next week, our lineups have already locked since Saturday. So to me, you stay away from this. Good. Lamar Jackson, we were talking about. Well, I mean, it's up for debate how heavily owned he's going to be in this competition. I know that.
I'd bet on him being the top owned at least.
I think it's to be him or Josh Allen. I think one of those two guys will probably be the top quarterback owned. The problem is, it's like if you don't take Jackson as your Raven, the only other option to me is Zay Flowers. I'm not going to do Bateman. I'm not going to do Beckham. I'm staying away from the backfield. No Dalvin Cook or any of that nonsense. Like I can't do that. And the tight end situation is cloudy enough for me to just stay away. So to me, it's weird. Number 1 seed, you look at the number 1 seed in the NFC, there's like 18,000 options you could go with there. But with the number 1 seed in the AFC, to me now it comes down to either Jackson or Flowers. That's it.
Let's make this Lamar Jackson team and make our lives easy. Okay. Right? Let's make it easy on ourselves. All right. So we're going to lock that in. On the 49ers side, this is the one that's the hardest one, right? Because now luckily we're taking Purdy off the table for ourselves, but we still have CMC, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle in a tight end premium format. I mean, I would not be shocked if either of those 4 guys was a top scoring position player for the team. So you know what? For the sake of time, because we got to get through this, I'm just going to mark, because the beautiful thing is because they use Kyle Juszczyk, there's no other option. We're not going to use the kicker or defense on this particular team probably, right? So I'm just going to mark those 4 down for the 49ers for us. And then when we get to the lineup making, will handle that in the flex, right? We'll sit there and say, okay. Or I mean, again, depending on what we use for running backs, we could, it could sort itself out. We'll have to see. Next matchup here. Now we're into Sunday at 4:30. This is going to be the Packers at Cowboys game. This one has an over-under of 50.5, but Cowboys touchdown favorites. So the implied point totals for the Cowboys going to be the highest of the week. So we're going to have a Cowboy in there, and we're probably going to have one we like a lot. And then on the Packers side, we can kind of do whatever we want. We could have one, we could not have one, we could kicker or defense. But on the Cowboys, I mean, we're not going to use Dak because we're going to use Lamar, which is nice. So what are you thinking over there? What are you thinking, man?
All right, what do you want to do? Packers or Cowboys first here?
Let's do Cowboys first. More fun.
Okay, Cowboys first. All right. So now you want to talk about most owned player in the competition. To me, CeeDee Lamb is going to be right up there. I know it's tight end premium. Ferguson is going to be a tough guy to trust. Pollard, I know, is finally getting his sea legs back under him, or land legs, I guess, whatever it is, under him after that injury. I mean, he said this like a couple of weeks ago that he's just now feeling better. So I think, and you can run on the Packers. Despite what they've done the last 3 weeks, you can run on the Packers. So Pollard is interesting to me. Prescott, we're going to eliminate because we already have Lamar Jackson on this squad. I said this last night. I was talking with Alex Court from Draft Sharks. I said, I feel like I'll use this analogy. Did you ever see the movie? What was the Blake Lively shark movie, right? Where she's stuck out on one of those buoys or whatever, and the shark is like hunting her, and she does not want to leave that buoy, right? But she knows she has to at some point. But in her head, she knows that it is suicide to leave that buoy. CeeDee Lamb is that buoy for me.
He's
right
the
now.
buoy. Yeah, I don't want to.
You are going to have to do everything in your power to pull me off that buoy here and make a case for another Cowboy other than Lamb. I know it could be silly because he's going to be so owned in this competition. But what do we say at the top of the show? Like, some chalk is always required to win this competition.
100%, dude. The team that won the 200 last year was virtually chalk down the board.
Yeah.
Besides the most unique plays were Miami defense, which I think they just kind of plugged in because they were out of other teams, and Christian Kirk, which, I mean, Christian Kirk was arguably the best Jaguar option. But like, when you look at the rest of his team, it was legit. Austin Eckler, who was the RB1, CMC, Saquon Barkley, Chase, Justin Jefferson, Travis Kelce. You know what I mean? It was chalk down the board. So I think you're right. I think it makes our lives easy to go Lamb, and we're different. We'll probably differentiate just enough elsewhere. So I like Lamb there. And then on the Packers side, I mean, there are definitely players capable of a singular big game, which is what we want, right?
So here's the thing, and this is how I know I'm a Packers fan, because I'm like a half hour from the stadium, like a Packers fan all my life. When I was preparing for other shows this week and putting out all the possibilities, I had like literally everyone listed. The only players I didn't list were Jordan Love and the defense. Like, I have no interest in either one of them. But like everybody else, like Jones and Reed and Watson and Wicks and Kraft and Musgrave, like now, and Dobbs too. Now, what I think. Okay, so let's frame it like this. I think we can eliminate Watson, number one, because we don't know how healthy he is. Number two, I don't think he's playing against the Cowboys, and you can't afford to take a zero. Dobbs is another guy. He's practicing, but he is not like that Nico Collins, Amari Cooper, like Christian Watson. You could even make the case like game-changing player here, or like last year's Christian Kirk. So I think he's solid, but he's not what we're looking for here. Wicks, I think, is just looks to him, but he looks to him in the end zone, and he's very inconsistent. He's very good, but he's very inconsistent as far as how often he gets targets. Because Musgrave came back in Week 18, let's apply the Baltimore Ravens theorem to the Packers tight ends and eliminate Kraft and Musgrave because we just don't know what's there. So it comes down to Jones, Reed. I'm not playing the defense. I can't play the kicker. I've seen too many bad things from both those positions on the Packers this year. So it's Jones or Reed or a fade for me. I think you can make the case for a fade. I think the Cowboys win this game, and quite frankly, I think they win it by double digits. So to me, if we want to fade the Packers, I'm good with that. Otherwise, if we're not fading the Packers, Aaron Jones has been an absolute Cowboys killer in his career, So if it's not a fade, it's got to be Aaron Jones.
Yeah, Chris Sellers and Britt Flynn, both Cowboys fans, both Fantasy Alarm family, were saying the same thing earlier this week, that the Cowboys fans know Aaron Jones kills them. The Packers fans know it. So yeah, he's definitely on the he's on the radar. So yeah, I put down Reed and Jones there just for explosiveness. So we'll see what we got there. Let's rapid fire through these next ones so we can make this team and give away that. We have the betting show coming up right after this. So Rams Lions. On the Rams side, you can go Puka, Kupp, Kyren, right? I mean, that's the deal. So I mean, we don't really need to get too much into that unless when we get to it, we'll decide if we want to be different or not. But Puka, Kupp, Kyren, and then on the Lions side, because of the Laporta issues, it's basically Amon-Ra St. Brown or one of the running backs to try and get a little different. But I don't know. I might apply the CeeDee Lamb theorem to Amon-Ra St. Brown here and just say, you know what? Because there's a split backfield, because there's the knee with Laporta, let's just make our lives easy, right? With Amon-Ra.
Cannot do Laporta and Gibson, Montgomery. Who knows? Could be one of those guys, but he won't be on our roster. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown. Win or lose, like whatever the Lions are doing, St. Brown is going to have a big game. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that's the thing with Gibbs and Monty. I put them in that the 10% rule for me. If I have 10 teams, I have a Gibbs. I think I have 2 Gibbs teams and 1 Monty team. Just to have them in there. Then we got the Monday night game. Eagles, Buccaneers, +3 in favor of the Eagles, and over-under is 43.5. Very strange going-ons with the Eagles, right? Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith both banged up. A.J. Brown did not practice yesterday. Dallas Goedert kind of boring. DeAndre Swift has not been catching passes. This is full PPR.
Oh, and he's banged up too. That's the other
thing. He's banged up too, so I don't know. On the Eagles side, I've in a few of my lineups here, like I felt the need to play some AJ Brown, but honestly, I've got a lot of actually defense and kicker from this Eagles team.
I could definitely see that. The Eagles seem to be a team that is, not the opposite of peaking right now, whatever that is. Like they're hitting a low right now.
They're in the valley.
They're in the valley, and I can't trust either of the receivers. You're right. Goddard is kind of boring. I think you could throw him in as a potential play because he is getting targets. The kicker or defense thing is in play. I kind of actually like Tampa in this game.
Right, me too. I think that's where we get different. Is say, okay, you know what? We just fade the Eagles and ride a buck.
Yeah, here's the thing. Let's do this. Let's either do kicker, defense, or fade for Philly and stay away from everybody else.
I love that. Okay, perfect. And then on the Bucs side, I mean, the chalk is Mike Evans, but Rachaad White's been good, and Chris Godwin, now that he's healthy, proves that he's capable of big games. I mean, to me, you play a Chris Godwin if you think the Bucs are going to lose, and you try and pull a sneaky, right? If you think that the Eagles win, then you would say, okay, you know what? All I need Chris Godwin to do is outscore Mike Evans and Rachaad White for one game, and then now I automatically finish ahead of everybody that started Mike Evans, right? But if you think the team wins, I would say over the course of 1, 2, 3 games, Mike Evans and Rachaad White are probably going to outscore Chris Godwin. Does that sound like decent game theory to you?
It's I think the other thing we need to bring up, and when I was talking about this last night, Alex Kors said this to me. He's like, who represents the lowest floor of these 3 players? And I would say Evans is probably the highest ceiling. He's probably also the lowest floor. Like we've seen him have games like this where he just, puts up a 2 for 10 or something like that. Whereas Godwin and Rachaad White are so involved in the game plan. Again, maybe not to the degree of putting up explosive plays like Evans. But I think Godwin is kind of an interesting guy here, especially if the Bucs, again, win or lose, Godwin's going to be involved in the game plan. And the Eagles' rush defense, I know it's not what it was at the start of the season. It's still pretty good, isn't it, Coop?
Right. Yeah, it is.
So, and then I think Godwin might be the play here for Tampa.
Interesting. All right. Well, I mean, that's the thing is a play like that is enough to put in perspective. Chalk does do well in these contests. Mm-hmm. Like you could win this contest playing literally just the chalk plays and then starting a Godwin. And then starting maybe a kicker that other people aren't starting. Like that, sometimes it works out like that. So let's get in. Why don't we get in and actually make the lineup here? I've been keeping tabs on all the players we've been talking about. So let's jump in. Again, if you want to get set up with this, two things right now. We're going to give away a $200 entry to a Fantasy Alarm member at the end of the show coming up very soon. And also, if you go and use promo code Coop, COOP, at my FFPC, they'll give you $25 when you deposit $35 or more, right? So what I would do is deposit $45. They'll give you 25. Now you have two $35 entries. Or if you want to get in the $200 one, deposit a little bit more. So go check that out now. Promo code Coop at my FFPC. And here's our lineup based on what we're going through here. So right off the bat, we said we're going to use Lamar Jackson. So makes it easy. Get him in there, right? And again, we got to go quick on this because we got to jump out by 2:00 because we have the betting show, the Fantasy Alarm betting show with Dan Servadidio and Howard Bender coming up right after this. So stay tuned on the channel. But yeah, Lamar Jackson, we're going in. And then after that, we've got we wanted to use Achane, right? So we'll put him right in. That's our Dolphin. Boom. And that's also a running back. We're not going to have a ton of running backs, so that's good to have. Here we go. So with the Browns, we want to have a Brown. It's Amari Cooper, David Njoku, Browns defense, or kicker. I kind of like Njoku, to be honest.
Okay, if you let, I was going to say, like, look who's hosting the show. Let's go with Amari Cooper here. But if you
actually, you know what? Let's go with the Cooper narrative.
Okay, all right.
Maybe we should go Amari Cooper and Cooper Kupp, the old Coop team.
Oh,
double Coop team.
Do that. That's interesting.
We could do it.
It's very on brand. Let's see how that. Well, I'll tell you what. Do you want to put Cooper Kupp in there now?
Let's put it in and see how it looks. Yeah. Now we're getting crazy.
I love this.
That'd be great though if we do the double Coop squad, dude. Right? Why not? There's no Balkmans out there. What the heck?
No, there's none.
No Eric's either, man.
No.
What's your middle name, Eric?
Johnson. I don't know if we got any Johnson.
Oh, we're not using Deontay Johnson. Yeah. Do we put Deontay Johnson in?
No, that's not. Let's listen. Join me back on planet Earth.
Imagine if the lineup ends up being that if we had just gone with our gut with our names. So yeah, okay. So we got those in there. Let's go with Amon-Ra St. Brown in there, right? Because we said we're going to use him.
Yep.
We said we kind of settled on Godwin. I felt like, right?
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, and we said CeeDee Lamb.
Lamb, yeah. Let's get him in there.
Yeah. So and we can, now that we have Cooper Kupp and Amari Cooper in there and Achane, honestly, we can go fairly chalky with the other spots. We need a running back in this lineup, and the running backs that we discussed that are available are we could use Pacheco because we don't have a Chief.
Right.
We could use James Cook because we don't have a Bill, or we could use Aaron Jones.
Or super chalky, Christian McCaffrey.
We got to use Christian McCaffrey. That's right. So we're going to get Christian McCaffrey in there. Christian McCaffrey. But now with the last spot, we're going to have to fade. We have to have a Buffalo Bill in there. So we got to go with a Bill right now with our last flex spot, which means we're going to have to go with Dalton Kincaid or James Cook.
No, it's Kincaid. We're doing two Coopers. We're definitely going to have the tight end whisperer having an extra tight end on here. So it's Dalton Kincaid.
Okay. And then do we go 2 tight end set with Travis Kelce? We can go Kincaid's in that spot, so we could go Pacheco. But
no, let's do Pacheco. Pacheco. Let's put Pacheco in there. Let's get nuts here. I like this.
All right, let's go, dude. No Travis Kelce. I mean, he's been kind of faded for the last, month or so. So it's not crazy. So that leaves us with kicker and defense. The options available, let's do defense first because that's most important, I feel.
Okay.
Houston Texans, Pittsburgh Steelers, which we discussed the benefits of. Green Bay Packers, that's kind of a tough one. Implied point total.
Not the Packers,
or the Eagles, which we also discussed. So, Houston, Pitt, or Eagles, all viable, man.
I kind of lean towards the Texans or Steelers here. What do you think?
Texans or Steelers?
Let's
go Steelers.
Steelers? Okay.
Yeah, because we're going Kincaid. We're going Kincaid, yeah. So you could have a good Kincaid game without a big blow-up game. Mm-hmm. All right, and then we need a kicker, which it's going to be Jake Elliott. It's going to be Kaimi Fairbairn, who's been very good, or Anders Carlson. And we said we're not doing Carlson.
No, not Carlson. Yeah, Fairbairn or
that for that Steelers pick. That game does have the lowest over/under of any game. So
Yeah, I like that. I like the Steelers defense here. So Fairbairn or Jake Elliott is what it comes down to.
Yeah, I think
I'm good. Okay. If you're going to ask me, I lean towards Fairbairn, but I could definitely be persuaded to Jake Elliott because I think about all those AJ Brown, DeAndre Swift. We didn't talk about him too. People could be going with Swift. People could be going with Brown or Smith or.
I like Fairbairn. Historically, I've looked at teams that go for it on fourth down a lot, and that's bad for the kicker. I mean, actually, when I say I look at it, I say that Linda at Lindellians on Twitter has looked at it and told me about it. So you don't want the Brandon Staley's of the world, and you don't want a team that is automatic on 4th and 1, right? Because you want a team to say, okay, let's kick it here. They ain't kicking it. They're doing the tush push, right? So forget that. Let's go with Fairbairn. So that's the lineup here, folks. We're fading Philly completely. Lamar Jackson, quarterback, Christian McCaffrey, Devon Achane, Cooper Kupp, Amari Cooper, Isaiah Pacheco, Chris Godwin, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Dalton Kincaid, Ka'imi Fairbairn, Pittsburgh defense. And I'll tell you right now, those are all megastars, and our lineup is unique, right? There's just enough difference there that we can fill a lineup with stars, and then you can do it to yourself. So go to ffpc.com, myffpc.com, use promo code Coop. They'll give you $25 when you deposit 35 or more. Big Marty, I don't care if the Philly Bros are triggered or not. We're trying to make that money, baby. So this is the Coop to Loop Dalton Kincaid lineup here. And guess what, folks? Now is the time that you've been waiting for. We are giving away a $200 entry into this contest where you can win $500,000 right now. I'm going to have our marketing guy, Edward Rouse, pull it. I'm reaching over to him right now. So anybody that got in there during the show, you are in. It's being pulled. Can I get a drum roll, Eric?
Worst drum roll ever. I don't know.
I like it, dude. That was like a drum solo, dude.
I was trying to do like Beverly D'Angelo from Christmas Vacation when they let us, and she does like. I can't do it.
I love it, dude. I love it. So hey, the winner is in. Shout out Fantasy Alarm. Make sure this is to reward the All Pro members, so there's only members of Fantasy Alarm in it. Shout out to Keith Duck, the Steeler Maniac. You have won a $200 entry into the FFPC contest where you can win $500,000, and there are $1.4 million in prizes. So you don't have to win the top one to get that money. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you, all the Fantasy Alarm members. Eric, thank you so much for helping me win a bunch of money, even if you can't win, right? You know what? If I win, what we'll do is we'll send you a little edible arrangement or whatever's under, under the tax benefit there. And thank you guys for joining the show. All you guys, Jack Senzen, Anthony, Mayani, Coop in the house. Anthony, have fun at the game this week. Says he's going to the Lions-Rams game. Make sure you're rooting for Amon-Ra St. Brown and Cooper Kupp in that one. Shout out to Air Jordan representing the Twitch gang, our friends over on Twitch, our friends on YouTube. Thank you, everybody. And if you're hanging out here, you might as well stay tuned on the channel. Coming up next, Howard Bender, Dan Servadidio breaking down the bets this week for a huge week of sports betting. One of the biggest ones. I mean, it's playoff time, baby. Get fired up. So thank you, guys. And thank you to the Prince, Sean Engel, son of the king, behind the glass today helping us out. So thank you, everybody. And Eric, if you want to give one quick shout out before we go, let everybody know where they can find you, what you got going on.
Yeah, myffpc.com is where you want to register for this. You can always follow me on Twitter at Eric Balkman, at FFPC. We're actually interviewing on my High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour show tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern Time, Brendan Gobert, who won the $1 million in the Fantasy Pros Championship this year. So that's going to be fun. And I'll probably be adding another playoff challenge lineup live on the air with him tonight. So that's going to be a lot of fun as well.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. We are out.